Veterinarians across the state are pushing for legislation that would close a loophole involving who can operate on animals. This comes after a charity faced some backlash for allowing medical surgeons to operate on animals. The charity halted the practice amid the backlash, even though from the state's perspective, it wasn't doing anything illegal. Caitlin Ross has been digging into this story. Caitlin.
We checked with the state licensing board and it said from its standpoint, Surgeons for Strays never broke any laws. The charity was founded by an orthopedic surgeon who saw a need to help rescue dogs. In many of those cases, the animals needed expensive surgeries that rescue shelters simply couldn't afford. The charity paid for the surgeries themselves, and the doctors always operated in a veterinary office under the supervision of a vet. But many licensed vets in Georgia don't think that goes far enough to protect the animals and ensure they're receiving proper medical care. They filed a complaint against the doctor who ran the charity. He's since voluntarily shut it down, but vets think it points to a greater need to change or clarify state laws so that only licensed veterinary surgeons can perform operations on animals.
There needs to be effort put forward to make that clear and may have something enforceable. I think as veterinarians, probably our job is to do a better job of letting the public know how much we do for unowned and shelter and rescue animals.
At 6, what veterinarians want people to know about their efforts to save homeless dogs and cats.
All right, come